The judge held the thick sealed file in both hands. The court seal was still unbroken. He looked down at the label. Then he looked at my sister. Then he looked at my parents sitting beside their lawyer. And finally, he looked at me. His voice was calm when he spoke. "Do they have any idea what's inside this file?" I met his eyes and gave a small nod. What happened next changed everything. It took only 11 minutes. The bailiff moved twice. My sister screamed so loudly that even the court clerk jumped. My mother squeezed the armrest until her knuckles turned white. And my father stared at the floor. Just like he had been doing for 10 years. But that courtroom was the end of the story. The beginning happened on a cold Tuesday night in March. It started with a porch light. And a baby I never expected. My name is Claire. I am 34 years old. I work as a registered nurse in a small town in western North Carolina. 10 years ago, my younger sister left her newborn daughter on my front porch and disappeared. My parents looked me in the eye and told me the baby was my problem. So I raised her. I loved her. I adopted her. And 10 years later, when all three of them came back demanding custody, I had one sealed file that destroyed every lie they tried to tell. Back then I was 24. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the community clinic. I was exhausted. My feet hurt. My scrub smelled like hand sanitizer and hospital air. All I wanted was sleep. When I pulled into my driveway around 11 at night, I noticed something strange. The porch light was on. I always left it on. But that wasn't what caught my attention. Something sat in the middle of the welcome mat. At first I couldn't tell what it was. Then my heart stopped. It was an infant car seat. I dropped my bag and hurried toward it. A pale yellow blanket covered a tiny sleeping baby. For a second I simply stared. My nurse instincts took over. I knelt beside the carrier and checked her breathing. Steady. Warm. Healthy. Fed recently. Then I saw a folded piece of notebook paper tucked beside the handle. The moment I saw the handwriting, my stomach twisted. I knew that handwriting. It belonged to my sister, Rachel. My hand shook as I opened the note. There were only a few words. Her name is Emma. I can't do this. Don't look for me. R. That was all. No explanation. No apology. No phone number. Just a baby. And a note. I looked up and down the street. Nothing. No car. No movement. No sign of Rachel. She was gone. I carefully lifted the baby from the carrier. She stirred softly but didn't wake up. I held her against my chest. She felt so small. So helpless. And completely innocent. I called 911. Then I called my parents. Mom didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I called a third time. Still nothing. Finally I called Dad. He answered on the fourth try. His voice sounded sleepy. I explained everything. The baby. The note. Rachel disappearing. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he sighed. I'll talk to your mother. And he hung up. That was it. No concern. No questions. Nothing. By sunrise, I had already bought formula and baby supplies from the 24-hour Walmart. I still wore the same scrubs from work. The cashier looked at me strangely as I placed formula, diapers, and bottles on the counter beside a newborn baby. I pretended not to notice. At 8 in the morning, I drove to my parents' house. The baby slept in the back seat. The house looked exactly the same. Brick walls. American flag by the mailbox. Flowers near the front porch. I carried Emma to the front door and knocked. Dad answered. For a moment, I thought he might help. Then Mom appeared behind him. Her arms were crossed. Her face was hard. She didn't even look at the baby. Rachel made her choice, she said. Mom, this is a baby. She is not our responsibility. I stared at her. She's your granddaughter. Mom's expression didn't change. She's your burden now. The words hit me like a slap. She needs family. Mom shook her head. Rachel created this mess. We're not cleaning it up. I looked at Dad. He stood there silently. His hand gripped the doorframe. His mouth opened. Then closed again. He said nothing. Not one word. Mom shut the door in my face. I stood on the porch holding Emma. For a full minute I couldn't move. The baby slept peacefully against my chest. She had no idea her own grandparents had just rejected her. Finally I turned around and walked back to my car. Inside the car, I sat quietly. The engine was off. Emma was still sleeping. That was when I made two decisions. First, I would call Child Protective Services. Second, I would ask them to place Emma with me. The social worker arrived the next afternoon. Her name was Susan Parker. She wore practical shoes and carried a thick clipboard. She inspected my small apartment. 2 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. Tiny kitchen. Old furniture. Nothing fancy. But clean. She checked smoke detectors. Locks. Water temperature. Everything. Where will the baby sleep? She asked. I showed her the empty second bedroom. I can get a crib tomorrow. She nodded and made notes. You work full-time? Yes. As a nurse? Yes. She wrote more notes. Then she asked the question I already knew was coming. Do you know where the mother went? I shook my head. No idea. Susan explained how kinship placement worked. Emma could stay with me while they searched for Rachel. If Rachel never returned, things could become permanent. That night I signed temporary placement papers while Emma slept beside the kitchen table in a borrowed bassinet. My life changed overnight. The first few weeks felt like survival mode. I switched from night shifts to day shifts. My boss agreed immediately. I cut every unnecessary expense. No gym. No eating out. No streaming subscriptions. Every dollar went toward diapers, formula, and baby supplies. Every morning started at 5 o'clock. Coffee brewing. Emma in my arms. Bottles warming on the counter. I learned how to do everything with one hand. Drink coffee. Answer emails. Fold laundry. Hold a baby. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Slowly, Emma filled every corner of my life. Her first smile happened at 6 weeks. I cried. Her first laugh happened a few months later. I cried again. The first time she reached for me, my heart nearly exploded. By her first birthday, we had our routine. Work. Daycare. Dinner. Bath. Books. Sleep. Repeat. The nurses at the clinic became family. They threw me a surprise baby shower in the break room. There was cake. Tiny clothes. Gift cards. I cried in the bathroom afterward because I didn't want them to see. Every month, I sent my parents an email. Always the same message. Emma is healthy. Emma is growing. You are welcome to visit anytime. Every month I attached pictures. Emma smiling. Emma learning to walk. Emma covered in birthday cake. Emma dressed as a pumpkin for Halloween. My mother never replied. Not once. Dad replied only one time. 7 months after Emma arrived. 3 words. She looks healthy. That was it. No questions. No visit. Nothing. I saved every email. Every single one. I created a folder called Family. At the time, I didn't know those emails would one day save us. I also kept searching for Rachel. I called old friends. Checked social media. Contacted anyone who might know where she went. Nothing. She had vanished. After a year, I hired a family lawyer named Sarah Bennett. She listened carefully to my story. Then she said something I never forgot. Document everything. I frowned. Everything? She nodded. Everything. You never know when people who disappeared will try to rewrite history. So I documented everything. Every email. Every phone call. Every letter. Every court paper. Everything. When the guardianship hearing finally arrived, Rachel didn't show up. She didn't send a lawyer. She didn't call. She didn't write. Nothing. My parents were notified. Their response arrived through an attorney. Sarah read the letter aloud. We do not oppose guardianship and request no further contact regarding this matter. The judge looked surprised. Then he signed the order. I became Emma's legal guardian. When we left the courthouse, Emma slept peacefully in her car seat. I sat behind the steering wheel and stared through the windshield. The weight of everything finally hit me. A judge had just made me responsible for this little girl. Legally. Officially. Completely. I wiped my eyes. Started the car. And drove to the grocery store because we were out of bananas. Life didn't stop. Years passed. And something strange happened. Emma became my daughter long before the law ever said so. She called me Mama. She ran to me when she got scared. She reached for my hand when crossing streets. She wanted me at bedtime. She wanted me when she was sick. She wanted me when she was happy. Slowly, I stopped thinking of her as my niece. She was simply my child. The daughter I never expected. The daughter I would do anything to protect. And I had no idea that one day, protecting her would mean standing against my entire family. The years moved faster than I expected. One day Emma was a toddler learning new words. The next day she was 7 years old, carrying books bigger than her backpack. She loved reading. She could sit on the couch for hours with a chapter book and forget the entire world around her. Her teacher once smiled and told me, "Emma reads like a child twice her age." I wasn't surprised. Emma had always been curious. Always asking questions. Always wanting to learn. Our life was simple. Every morning started the same way. 5 o'clock. Coffee for me. Cereal for Emma. School. Work. Homework. Dinner. Bedtime stories. It wasn't exciting. But it was ours. And after everything we had been through, normal felt like a gift. Then one day a letter arrived. That letter changed everything. The envelope came from a nearby town. I didn't recognize the handwriting. Inside was a handwritten note. The man's name was Daniel Carter. He explained that he had dated Rachel years ago. Rachel never told him she was pregnant. He never knew Emma existed. Then recently, someone showed him a photo of Emma online. The resemblance shocked him. He wanted to talk. That was all. No demands. No threats. Just a request. I immediately called Sarah. Legally, he has no rights, she explained. The adoption isn't final yet? Not yet. But be careful. For a week I thought about the letter. Finally I called him. We met at a small diner halfway between our towns. Daniel was quiet. Respectful. Hardworking. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He showed me a childhood photo of himself. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same eyes. The same chin. The same smile. We agreed to a DNA test. 10 days later the results came back. Daniel Carter was Emma's biological father. When he heard the results, he didn't celebrate. He didn't cry. He simply looked down at the paper. Then he said softly, "I missed 7 years of her life." His voice broke. "I want to do the right thing." That was the moment I knew he was different from Rachel. We slowly introduced him into Emma's life. At first he was simply Mr. Daniel. Nothing more. No pressure. No expectations. Just visits. Daniel showed up every single time. Rain. Snow. Sunshine. Didn't matter. He always came. Emma loved asking him questions. Thousands of questions. How do bridges stay up? How do houses survive storms? Can you build a treehouse library? Daniel always answered patiently. Probably. Maybe. With enough lumber. Emma adored him. And honestly? So did I. Not because he was perfect. Because he showed up. That's all. He showed up. Something my parents and Rachel never managed to do. Months passed. Daniel became an important part of Emma's life. Then one afternoon he sat beside me on the porch while Emma chased butterflies in the yard. "I started a trust fund for her," he said. I blinked. "A trust fund?" He nodded. "For college." I stared at him. He continued watching Emma play. "I can't get back the years I missed." His voice was quiet. "But I can help her future." The trust started with $80,000. Later it grew larger. Much larger. Daniel also named me trustee. Not Rachel. Not my parents. Me. He trusted me completely. I didn't know then how important that decision would become. A few months later Daniel mentioned chest pain. Immediately my nurse instincts woke up. "You need a doctor." He laughed. "I'm fine." "You are not fine. It's probably stress." "Daniel." He smiled. "I'll make an appointment." But he never did. 3 weeks later my phone rang. It was 7 in the morning. The caller was Daniel's business partner. His voice sounded strange. Heavy. Unsteady. My stomach dropped before he even spoke. Daniel had collapsed at work. A massive heart attack. The paramedics tried everything. They couldn't save him. He was only 35. I sat on my bed holding the phone. Unable to move. Unable to breathe. In the kitchen, Emma was eating breakfast. Her spoon tapped softly against her bowl. The normal sound made everything feel even worse. I told her after school. She sat on the couch with her backpack still on. Then she cried. Quietly. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears running down her cheeks. Daniel hadn't been in her life very long. But he had loved her. And Emma knew it. The trust eventually grew to nearly $300,000. Everything was placed safely under my control as trustee. Sarah handled all the legal paperwork. And hidden among those papers was something else. A notarized statement Daniel had written before he died. I read it one evening. Every word. Daniel described Rachel's abandonment. My years raising Emma. My adoption plans. My role as her mother. Then I reached the final paragraph. I read it twice. Then 3 times. Daniel wrote that under no circumstances should Rachel or my parents ever control Emma's trust. He named them directly. He explained exactly why. I carefully placed the document inside my binder. The same binder Sarah had told me to build years earlier. I had no idea that document would later save us. A few months after Daniel's death, everything changed. Rachel discovered the trust fund. I never learned exactly how. But she found out. And suddenly, after 10 years of silence, she wanted to be a mother. Funny how that worked. The first sign came on a Saturday morning. A car pulled into my driveway. Rachel stepped out. She looked different. More polished. Expensive clothes. Expensive jewelry. Carefully styled hair. She walked to my porch smiling. The smile looked fake. Practiced. Like she had rehearsed it. "Claire," she said warmly. I didn't invite her inside. I know I've made mistakes. I stayed silent. I've changed. Still silent. I want to be part of Emma's life. There it was. The performance. The act. The loving mother routine. "You disappeared for 10 years, I said. Rachel's smile slipped slightly. I was struggling. "You never called." I was ashamed. "You never visited." I wasn't ready. "You asked me for money twice." Her jaw tightened. I saw the irritation flash across her face. For a moment the mask slipped. Then it returned. "Mom and Dad want to see Emma too." Of course they did. Now. After 10 years. Now. "I'll think about it," I said. Then I closed the door. The second Rachel left, I called Sarah. Sarah listened carefully. Then she sighed. "She already hired a lawyer." "What?" "She isn't here for a reunion." Sarah's voice hardened. "She is building a case." And she was right. Within days my phone exploded. My mother called. Suddenly I was sweetheart again. Suddenly Emma was their granddaughter again. Suddenly they cared. Funny timing. I responded politely. Always in writing. Always documented. Every text. Every email. Every voicemail. Into the binder they went. Then came the lawsuit. A process server knocked on my door one morning. I opened the envelope. Rachel wanted custody. My parents wanted visitation rights. And all three claimed I had kept Emma away from them. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was ridiculous. 10 years of silence. Now suddenly they were victims. I called Sarah. "They filed." "I know," she replied. "I've already started preparing." Sarah had been expecting this. Because unlike Rachel, we had evidence. Years of evidence. The binder was now 3 inches thick. Every email. Every letter. Every recording. Every court order. Every piece of proof. The court date finally arrived. The night before, I barely slept. Emma climbed into my bed. Something she hadn't done in years. "Mama?" "Yeah? Are they going to take me away?" My heart shattered. I pulled her close. "No." "Promise?" "I promise." She looked into my eyes. Searching. Making sure. Then she nodded. And finally fell asleep. I stayed awake most of the night. Watching over her. The next morning we went to court. The same courthouse where so much of our story had happened. Guardianship. Adoption. Now this. Rachel arrived dressed perfectly. My mother sat behind her. Dad sat beside Mom. Looking at the floor. Just like always. The hearing began. Rachel cried on the witness stand. She claimed she always loved Emma. Always planned to return. Always wanted to reconnect. Then Mom testified. She claimed I kept Emma from them. Claimed they had begged to visit. Claimed they were victims. Dad repeated the same story. Family should be together. Family should be together. Family should be together. Sarah didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. Didn't get emotional. She simply waited. Then she stood. And opened the binder. The courtroom became completely silent. Sarah presented everything. The abandonment report. The guardianship records. The adoption decree. The 96 monthly emails. Every invitation. Every ignored message. Then she presented my mother's letter. The one requesting no further contact. The judge read every word. My mother's face lost all color. Then Sarah played Rachel's recorded phone calls. The calls where she only wanted money. The calls where she never once asked about Emma. Rachel looked horrified. The judge kept reading. Then Sarah presented the timeline. The day Rachel discovered the trust fund. The day she filed for custody. 22 days apart. The courtroom suddenly understood everything. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about family. This wasn't about Emma. It was about money. Then came Daniel's statement. Sarah read it aloud. Every word. The room became silent. The judge read it again himself. Slowly. Carefully. When he finished, he removed his glasses. Then he looked directly at Rachel. Do you understand what's in this file? Rachel looked confused. For the first time all day, she looked scared. The judge reviewed everything. Then he made his ruling. Rachel's parental rights had already been terminated years ago. The adoption was legal. Final. Permanent. Rachel had no standing. No rights. No case. The custody petition was dismissed. The visitation request was denied. Everything was over. Rachel exploded. She jumped to her feet. That's my daughter. Her scream echoed through the courtroom. She belongs with me. The bailiff stepped forward. You stole her. She pointed at me. You stole everything. The judge ordered her removed. The bailiff escorted her outside. My mother followed. Furious. Humiliated. Defeated. Dad followed quietly behind them. Without saying a word. The courtroom slowly emptied. Sarah touched my shoulder. It's over. I sat there for several seconds. Unable to move. 10 years. 10 years of protecting Emma. 10 years of documenting everything. 10 years of showing up. And finally it was over. I drove to my friend Dr. Morgan's house. Emma was waiting on the front steps. The moment she saw me, she ran. What happened? I knelt down. Held her face gently. And smiled. Nobody is taking you anywhere. Emma threw her arms around me. Holding me as tightly as she could. I hugged her back. For a moment neither of us let go. We drove home together. Windows down. Cool autumn air. Golden sunlight. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. A week later my mother called. I hope you're happy, she snapped. This was never about happiness, I replied. This was about Emma. You destroyed this family. I closed my eyes. No, Mom. My voice stayed calm. You destroyed it the night you closed your door. Silence. Then she hung up. Rachel disappeared again. This time I didn't care. Dad sent one final letter. Only a few lines. I should have done better. I'm sorry. I placed it inside the binder. Then closed the cover. Some apologies arrived too late. But they still matter. That night I stood on my porch. The same porch where everything had started. The porch light glowed softly. 10 years earlier I had found a tiny baby wrapped in a blanket. Now that baby was 10 years old. Safe. Loved. Protected. Sleeping inside the house. The same blanket still sat folded on her bed. Worn. Patched. Treasured. I smiled. Because I finally understood something. Family isn't blood. Family isn't biology. Family isn't a last name. Family is showing up. Again. And again. And again. It's choosing someone every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. For 10 years, I chose Emma. And in the end, that choice changed both our lives forever.